Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Super review for episode 8, and boy was this an episode that has a lot of things to talk about. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So I'm going to talk about the plot, the action, interesting details, my overall impressions, and as requested by Super Jane, I'm going to add a fifth thing to my Super reviews nowadays, which is going to be the most memorable moments from each episode as a whole. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. Now, in terms of the plot for this episode, some of you might argue that this plot was simply just an extended version of episode 7, where we essentially see Beerus slap Bulma and then Vegeta goes to charge him, which should have happened in episode 7, I will admit. However, I do like a lot of the extra little elements that they did in this episode to intensify the plot that carried over from the previous episode, where we see Vegeta fighting Beerus, we see, Oolong having to play rock, paper, scissors to save Earth. And most importantly, we also see like how the characters are interacting with Beerus, like once he was actually threatening to blow up the planet itself. And I think because of all those extra things, although they kind of stretched the plot out, I definitely feel like since Beerus is the main antagonist, it wasn't that bad. And I really enjoyed the different little things that they changed for this episode as a whole. Now, the moment that we've all been waiting for in Dragon Ball Super ever since the beginning is the moment where we finally got to see Vegeta fight Beerus, and that was awesome. I would use some other words, but I have a lot of kids watching me, and I feel like this episode truly captured what we were expecting from Dragon Ball Super. Episode 5 had a decent looking fight, but the animation was so poor that it took away from that, and it was dragged out too long. Although I felt that the fighting scene for this episode was a bit too short, I'd rather have a short fighting sequence that's more condensed and more entertaining to watch than one that's completely drawn out and just clearly stretched out for the duration of the episode as a whole. And then this is by far the best fight that we've seen so far in Dragon Ball Super, so I'm gonna have to definitely give an extra thumbs up, and probably an extra thumb if I had one, for the action in this episode. Great job. So, moving on to some interesting details, the first thing that I noticed is that when Oolong is playing rock, paper, scissors with Beerus, that was taken strictly from the extended version of Battle of Gods.
I nominate you! Yes, I'm singling you out, Porky. Who, me? That's right. The one who looks so delicious.
That was not in the theatrical release, and I found that kind of interesting because Super actually did a much better job portraying it and making the moment seem a lot more serious than it actually did in Battle of Gods. So I kind of like how they took something that they kind of did in Battle of Gods and capitalized and made it much better in Super itself. So that's one little interesting detail. Another extra scene that Super added that really added to the character development that was not in Battle of Gods or the manga was when we saw Bulma getting mad at the fact that basically Goten and Trunks were basically walking around that cruise ship and looking for the Dragon Balls. I felt that was a pretty quick little instant scene that I felt added a little bit more character development or character interactions. We see Bulma actually getting upset about them, like finding the Dragon Balls and everything along those lines. So I felt that scene also added to Super as well. Now, as my first after production edit, I also wanted to mention that I found it pretty interesting how Beerus was saying, in at least the version I saw, that he has had a long time since he's had to use 1% of his power. And if he had to use 1% of his power, I think that further exemplifies the whole Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan 4, pure Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, increase in power level, because now I think that's going to give fans a brand new set of arguments to use, and I found that was pretty cool. As for my final interesting detail, this has to deal with Oolong playing rock, paper, scissors with Beerus, and Bulma tells him, if you win this, I'll give you anything that you want. Now, this is obviously taking a direct reference to Dragon Ball, where Bulma had to go through several perverted moments with both Oolong and Master Roshi. So it was kind of taking a nod back to the original Dragon Ball fans. And at the same time, I found it interesting how Bulma gave him the peace symbol, and ironically, Oolong chose scissors when he was playing against Beerus. And essentially, he's using a peace symbol to beat Beerus, but then loses, and then peace is not going to happen as a result of him losing. So it's kind of like a peace out kind of thing, because literally he lost. And that's kind of like my analysis of how I view that whole little peace symbol thing along with the original Dragon Ball stuff. Now, in terms of my overall impressions, I will say that this did not really feel that much like a filler episode. Yes, you could look at the Oolong stuff and say that that felt filler-ish, but I felt that that scene with Oolong and Beerus was by far the most comical moment in the entire series so far. It added a lot to the series. There was good action, and the best thing about this episode was how serious it felt when Beerus was about to blow up the Earth. Like when you see like Android 18 holding Marin and everybody's just looking up. That really gave you the feeling like they were feeling hopeless, that they could do nothing to stop Beerus. Vegeta lost. I'm not going to mention what happened to Piccolo, and all the other characters were severely beaten by Beerus. So, without him even having to try. So when you look at everything along those lines, it's like, wow, like this is it. Like we're really about to die. And then good old Goku comes in and they played that corny theme song, you know, to basically capture that moment. And I felt that really was a powerful moment. Even though we already kind of saw some of it from Battle of Gods, that was an awesome scene, and I personally think that's the best scene we've seen so far in Dragon Ball Super. Now, doing my first little extra segment in my Super reviews, I'm going to talk about some memorable moments, and obviously Oolong playing rock, paper, scissors, obviously Beerus about to destroy Earth, and obviously the other scene where we saw obviously Vegeta fighting against Beerus, which was the best fight we've seen so far. Those were some memorable moments, but one that I did not mention was when Whis was talking to the chef, and the guy was mentioning, next time you come. And Whis was saying, oh, well, I don't think there's going to be a next time. That was kind of like a little quirky thing, and he's saying there's a 50% chance I won't be here. Actually, there's, you know, obviously because in rock, paper, scissors, you keep playing until one side wins. So I felt that was kind of a little, you know, I guess you could say a little cool thing to mention in terms of dialogue, like Whis is being so literal with, oh yeah, I might not be here. The way he said it, I felt made the scene look a lot better than I'm actually describing it. So that's a little extra thing I had for the episode. Now, just as a little after production edit, one quick thing that I wanted to point out is that it was pretty funny how Beerus was considering Oolong and Majin Buu to be the same race because of the fact that they're fat and pink, and I just thought that that was pretty funny how like Oolong was taking offense, you know, to Beerus considering them to be the same race, and you would think that Beerus would be more knowledgeable about the different races, but that was another little funny scene. It's so funny how I'm getting all these post-production edits in this video, but I just keep remembering as I keep editing this video together. And one interesting thing that I wanted to point out, guys, is that when Goku returns to basically ask Beerus not to blow up the Earth, it was kind of funny how Beerus looked at him and was like, oh look, it's you again. Like, this is Goku, like, the main protagonist of Dragon Ball, arguably the strongest guy on Earth. Obviously, you might argue Gohan or Vegeta, and that short instance would have been stronger. But this is Goku that we're talking about, and Beerus is just looking at him like, yeah, look at this guy I just trashed in 2 hits on King Kai's planet, and he treated him, like, so disrespectfully in terms of, like, his respect for him. I found that scene pretty funny, too. So guys, that has been my video for today. Overall, I'm going to have to give this episode a whopping 5 stars. This episode was amazing. It had great action. It was the funniest episode. I felt a serious sense of urgency in this episode. The way the characters were looking up and the way that, you know, Beerus was about to blow up the planet. It did not feel fillerish. I felt like the scenes were rich. And most importantly, it had memorable moments. And we actually got something out of this episode. Goku comes at the end. Vegeta fights Beerus. Oolong plays rock, paper, scissors. I felt like this episode accomplished several things in it. Even though Dragon Ball Super as a whole has been slow in pacing, this episode was definitely worth it. I think it's the best episode so far. I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So most importantly, over everything else, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys.